Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am coming to you from Paris, France. I am here for the bank holiday weekend. You know, Paris is always a good idea. This was a very spontaneous last-minute trip because a lot of my friends were out of town in London, and I figured I've got some friends in Paris I'd love to go catch up with. It's gonna be boiling hot this weekend, but I thought instead of doing daily itinerary vlogs, because I am gonna be kind of bopping around, I thought I would just do kind of some highlights in this video of what I saw and did. So if that sounds good, let's jump in. So a place that we had an epic lunch at is the famous Gigi Paris. Located on Avenue Montaigne, it is an Italian restaurant with an incredibly chic interior, plus outdoor terrace seating, some portions of which even have views of the Eiffel Tower. Because of the restaurant's location and popularity, this is absolutely a place where you need to make a booking, even at lunch. And I would classify this as a splurge. Yes, even at lunch. The appetizers were around 25 euros each, and the mains were around the 30 to 40 euro price point. So definitely a splurge, but it was fantastic. We started with an Aperol Spritz, as you do on a warm summer day in Paris, and it really hit the spot. I mean, the menu here is Italian, and we had a gorgeous sea bass carpaccio with stracciatella cheese and basil oil and some raspberries, which is not really something I would normally put together, but was so fantastic, really great flavor pairing. And then the other one we had was an antipasti with artichoke, truffle, and parmesan. Simple pleasures, great flavors, really quality ingredients, and I just really enjoyed it. I mean, worth the 25 euro price tag? I would say yes. So yes, we definitely enjoyed our appetizer course, and then it was on to the entrees, and I had a cod with bacon lardons, tomato, and zucchini, and it came in almost this like tomatoey foam. Every bit on the plate was so flavorful, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely worth the more premium price tag. It really was a wonderful experience. And my friend also had an incredible splurge. This truffled maffadine pasta. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but oh my gosh, it looked as good as it tasted. It was just a little bit of heaven with that beautiful creamy sauce, the abundance of truffles. We left very, very happy. Now, for those that are looking to book for other times of night, there's apparently also a Bellini bar, which I had not done my research beforehand and would have absolutely gone to check out. And apparently there's also live performances at dinner, and it's the kind of restaurant where they encourage you to dance and sing along and have fun. So I definitely would go back for dinner. But again, definitely a splurge, but a really fabulous ladies' lunch. The one thing I would say about sitting on the terrace, now no one was sitting inside when we went. It was this gorgeous summer day in Paris, and the only downside to sitting on the terrace was that the bees were swarming us. And unlike my experience in Italy, where they really wanted to go after like the ham or the prosciutto, they were really basically interested in any sort of food we had on our plates, which did take away from the experience a bit. So after an incredible lunch, we decided to go on a very long walk with a destination in mind, and that destination was Montmartre, the famous Parisian neighborhood. It is about a 1 hour walk from where we were at Gigi Paris, and it's also perched on a very large hill. And I just thought, hey, I can climb hills, but it was pretty aggressive. We wandered over to the famous La Maison Rose. It's kind of ruined by Instagram, to be fair. It's very overcrowded, but apparently La Maison Rose is really historic, and it's been open and serving coffee for over 100 years. And while the exact date that it opened is unknown, historians guess it was somewhere around 1850. And one more fun fact, the restaurant used to be beige, it was not always pink. I'll leave some other fun facts in the description box below. Now, after that, we also wandered by the famous Sacre-Cœur, which is a Roman Catholic church in a Neo-Byzantine Romanesque architectural style, and construction began in 1875 and continued for about 40 years under 5 different architects. It actually was completed in 1914, and it was formally consecrated in 1919 after World War I. Now, we didn't actually go up to right outside of Sacre-Cœur, and I know that you can go inside as well, so that's definitely still on my list for a return visit. Now, after all of that walking and dodging tourists, we were thirsty, and we found ourselves at a lovely little place called Le Consulat for a lovely glass of white wine, just something to have a little break, take in the view, and have a little bit of water and wine, although of course the water's not pictured here. Now, much later that evening, we went to yet another Italian restaurant. Apparently I came to Paris to eat super gourmet Italian cuisine, but hey, since I am half Italian, who's complaining? Certainly not me. We went to a place called Langosteria at Cheval Blanc in Paris, and Langosteria describes itself as having an address where Italy enjoys views over Paris, literally. So it is an Italian restaurant, but it's also located on the 7th floor of Cheval Blanc, which has beautiful views over Paris. And there are some wonderful kind of outdoor seating and an outdoor section for the bar, so you can actually enjoy those beautiful views. And as mentioned, the cuisine is Italian, but an emphasis on seafood, which I love. Now, we opted to do the tasting menu, which was wonderful, but like a bad blogger, I didn't take a picture of it, so I'm gonna try and remember the best I can. We ended up starting with this consommé, which to me almost tasted like my kind of nonna's chicken parmesan, but it really is just, it is basically kind of a tomato consommé, which was fantastic and super indulgent. Lots of olive oil in there. Then we had a gazpacho of yellow and red tomatoes. It is a specific type of tomato, but I'm going to butcher it. The flavors here were fantastic. And as you can see, the portions are not so big, so having quite a few courses made the meal very easily accessible for someone like me who doesn't have the world's biggest appetite there. Next up was this prawn dish, or shrimp as my Americans would say. While this looks like a very simple dish, the flavors were outstanding, and I think that's the reason why you come to a place like this for a fine dining experience. It's because they pick the best quality ingredients, they cook them perfectly, and it gives you a new way to appreciate some of your favorite foods. Now, next up was an amberjack sashimi with a jalapeno sauce, and this was fantastic. The sauce did not overly mask the flavors of the fish, which is what I was worried about. It was the perfect complement, to the point that I wanted to be like lapping up the sauce with bread. It was that good. And for me, that's the ultimate compliment when I don't want to leave any inch of anything on my plate. Next up, we had kind of almost like a frutta di mare kind of dish with a little bit of broth and tons of fresh seafood, from prawns to langoustines, octopus, cuttlefish, and some fresh vegetables to go with it. This was just simple, delicious, fresh, felt very healthy. Again, I never felt kind of weighed down during this meal, which was something I was worried about with doing a tasting menu experience. Next up, we had a crispy red mullet with spring onions and a little bit of kind of an olive tapenade on the side. This was also fantastic. I almost gasped when it arrived because it looks like this work of art, and you're wondering like, what are all these pointy things on the top? But oh, I love the mix of kind of the perfectly cooked fish with the crunch from the onion kind of crust. So good. And then next we had a, I think this was like a spaghetti and kind of tomato type dish, which was really, really wonderful. It also had kind of seafood in the sauce and the broth, but to be honest, I don't remember. I think it was prawns, but I'm not sure. But it was really fantastic, and they cooked the pasta very al dente, which is my favorite. And then for the pièce de résistance, there was tiramisu with a wonderful tableside presentation where they take the top off and it just kind of flips over. And you know, all that time you're getting the aroma of the cinnamon, and yeah, it was just a really wonderful experience. So I will leave a link down below because they have all the pricing for the tasting menus if that's something you're interested in. This was also definitely a splurge meal, but I wouldn't say it was inaccessibly splurgy, if that makes sense. Just given the number of courses that you got and the ability to get to taste test a lot of the menu, I felt like this was very good value for the money. And we even had a wonderful visit from the chef at the end, who my friend that I was with works in the food and beverage industry, and she happened to kind of know of who the chef was and asked if he could come to our table, and he very kindly obliged, which was really nice, and we were able to thank him personally for the meal, and got a little tip that they might be opening at some point in London, so fingers crossed, hopefully I'll get to go experience it again. So the next day I got to visit a completely new museum in Paris, and that's the Musée Jacquemart-André. I apologize for my pronunciations. Now this is a museum in a private mansion that dates back to the 19th century, and the founders of this museum are Edouard André and his wife Nelly Jacquemart, who were art collectors. And in 1872, Edouard decided to have his portrait painted, and it was commissioned by a young artist who was already a very successful portraitist, Nelly, his, I guess, eventually to be a wife. In 1881, they got married. It was described as a marriage of convenience, which sounds quite controversial, but I guess he was a Protestant Bonapartist and she was a Catholic. So I guess that was a little bit scandalous, but their union turned out to be a great success. They never had any children, but they devoted themselves entirely to their shared passion, their collection of works of art, which is now what visitors get to enjoy today in the museum. Now, in 1894, Edouard passed away at the age of 60, leaving his wife distraught, and the pain of her loss was exacerbated by an entirely unexpected situation, a lawsuit filed by her husband's family to recuperate his fortune. Oh, the scandal. Now, you know, they tried, they drew up these papers, but apparently his wife won the case, and when Nelly passed away in 1912, the mansion then became the property of the Institut de France through a legacy made by the owner several months earlier. And in her will, she stated her wish that the collections be made available to the broadest possible public and exhibited to the crowds of visitors. How remarkable, right? And the museum itself is not very large, but it is really wonderful to visit. I thoroughly enjoyed my visit there. It's every room that you go into is more grand than the next, and it gives you a little snapshot of what life was like in, you know, for the very well-to-do in 1800s Paris. But it also shows you just the passion of both Edouard and Nelly, their love for art, the types of art that they collected, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So not only is the museum architecturally significant with a gorgeous spiral staircase made for Instagram, which is actually how I discovered it, but yes, I would definitely recommend a visit if you are in Paris. It's a little bit more niche of a museum to see, but it is also very wonderful. My next stop in Paris was for brunch with a dear friend of mine, and it's located actually just adjacent to the famous Passage de Panoramas, which is very worth a walk through if you have some time while in Paris. There's lots of different quirky shops. This actually is the exterior of a coffee shop. So strange, so fabulous. I have so many questions. But yes, between some kind of quirky antique shops and restaurants, it's a great find. Now on to Sunday in Soho. This was a really great spot for brunch. I started with my classic oat milk latte, which was really lovely. And this restaurant is actually founded by a couple named Isabel and Ali. After 10 years of living in New York City, they moved to Paris in 2015 for a job opportunity. Only they moved into an apartment without a kitchen. So they were craving kind of fresh, healthy, delicious food, and they created this restaurant after leaving their corporate careers. Now I had the avocado toast with a side of halloumi. My friend had the Sailor Man, which is fried chicken, cheddar, lettuce, house aioli on a brioche bun. Not probably the healthiest. And mine came with this gorgeous side salad. So I think they definitely achieved on having a mostly healthy menu. But it was really wonderful to read the story on their website. I would highly recommend it if you want to check it out. It's a really great story of expats moving to Paris for a corporate job, finding more of a passion in searching out for kind of healthy, fresh kind of brunch cuisine, and really celebrating the ritual of brunch, which is more about getting together with dear friends, connecting, having conversations. So I loved the spirit of the place. Probably a little bit more American style than your typical Parisian kind of brunch spot, but I thought the food was really good, and I would definitely recommend booking a table. We did not, we just kind of rocked up, and they do have a queue for people who don't book, and they do have a couple tables for people who do not book in advance, but what I would tell you is definitely book, because it just is way more efficient. Even if you do book, they were often running behind, so you're very deprioritized if you don't book. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I would definitely return next time I go to Paris. So thank you so much for tuning into this video. I know this is a little more hodgepodge from my usual kind of more travel vloggy itineraries, but I was too busy socializing with friends on this trip, so I didn't get as much time to properly travel vlog, and I still wanted to basically share with you some of the great things I did if you're looking for some established and more unique things to do while you're in Paris. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the word Paris in a comment at the end. I'd love to know who finishes all the way to the end. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. That really helps this channel. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe and leave a comment down below. Besides the word Paris, what else did you enjoy about this video? Or do you have any great travel tips for my next visit to Paris? Because Paris is always a good idea, and it's only one very easy train down on the Eurostar. So I have a feeling I'll be back before I know it. So thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you soon.